Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, my dear students. I am Dr. Atika Masood. Yesterday we have done with the carcinogens, and I have told you that along with the environmental carcinogens like radiations, like drugs, like chemical carcinogens, we have microbiological carcinogenic agents also, and these are called as oncogenic viruses and the bacteria. And today we are going to talk about these lethal, very cute ones, oncogenic viruses and the bacteria. As far as the classification of the oncogenic viruses are concerned, you have already read in the microbiology section about the classification of the oncogenic viruses, and you must know that there are basically two types of the viruses. The main importance classification point is the whether these are the DNA viruses or whether these are the RNA viruses. As far as DNA viruses are concerned, the important class is the herpes virus class. In the herpes virus class, we have two important viruses which are oncogenic viruses. One is Epstein-Barr virus, which is going to cause the production of the nasopharyngeal carcinoma and the Burkitt's lymphoma, and we are going to discuss it later on that how these are going to cause the neoplastic formation. Then we have herpes simplex virus, and what it is going to cause, we are going to talk about it. Then we have papovavirus family, and in this family the most important is the papillomavirus and the polyomavirus. Basically, we are going to talk about the papillomavirus. Then in the DNA viruses, we have hepatitis B virus, adenovirus, and the Kaposi associated virus, which is going to cause the Kaposi sarcoma. Then we have RNA containing viruses, and these RNA containing viruses, the most important is the human T cell leukemia virus, or the other name is the HTLV1 virus, and these are going to cause the T cell malignancy. And then we have hepatitis C virus. Like the hepatitis B virus, this hepatitis C virus is going to cause the hepatocellular carcinoma. So as far as viral carcinogenesis is concerned, basically for you people, the most important are the HPV virus, which is going to cause the squamous cell carcinoma, Epstein-Barr virus, which is going to cause the Burkitt's lymphoma and the nasopharyngeal carcinoma, hepatitis B and C, as I already told you that both of these are going to cause the hepatocellular carcinoma after the causation of the cirrhosis. Then we have human T cell leukemia virus, which is basically involved in the T cell malignancies. Then we have Kaposi's associated herpes, which is related with the Kaposi's sarcomas. Then we have human papilloma virus. First of all, we are going to talk about the that how these viruses are going to cause the oncogenicity. So my dear student, there are two types of mechanism. One is the direct mechanism by which these viruses are going to cause the oncogenicity. So by direct means that the viral oncogenes or viral genes are going to be transferred directly into the cell, into the host cell. So here I'm going to draw for you people that this is your virus, and the gene which is inside it, that later on we are going to talk about genes like POL and TEX, and these genes are directly going to be transferred into your host cells. So because of the induction of the gene directly into the host cell, multiple things are going to happen, like there is a loss of the normal growth replication or regulation process. Because of the loss of the normal growth regulatory process, the cells which are infected by these viruses will no longer be going to act for the inhibitory action, and they're going to produce their own growth promoting factors. Then they are going to affect the DNA repair mechanism. These affected cells are not going to be repaired by the DNA repair genes, and because of this there will be the genetic instability. Once there will be the genetic instability, after the proliferation, survival and the loss of the DNA repair, they are going to go for the cell immortalization, and because they are going to go for the cellular immortalization, there will be the mutations in the telomerase pathways, and once this is there, then there is a development of the mutagenic phenotype, and because after the development of the mutagenic phenotype there will be the carcinogenesis progression. So we have just talked about the direct pathways by the viruses. Now we are going to talk about the indirect pathways, and the indirect pathways, these viruses are not going to introduce any transforming gene into the cell, but what they are going to do, that they are going to alter the pre-existing cellular proto-oncogenes, and they are going to convert these proto-oncogenes into the oncogenes by the introduction of the regulatory pathway. There is a different regulatory pathways that we are going to talk about later on, that there will be the misregulation of the NF-kappa B pathway, or there will be the increased development of the interleukins, tumor necrosis factor, and because of this the same thing is going to happen, that in the host cell there will be the loss of the normal regulatory growth pathways. We do not have the DNA repair mechanism, or we are going to have the loss in the DNA repair mechanism, and because of this, when there is no inhibitory pathway, cells are capable enough of producing their own growth promoters, and once there are mutations in the genes and these mutate cells are not going to be repaired by the DNA, then there will be the genetic instability, and this genetic instability leads to the development of the mutagenic phenotype. And once there is a mutagenic phenotype, these are going to show that there will be the loss of the cellular polarity, there will be the vasculogenesis, and this colon is going to progress in, this is called as neoplastic progression. So by this diagram you have learned that these viruses are going to affect in two ways. One is the direct ways, in which this is going to cause the direction of the introduction of the genes from the viruses into the host cells, and the second one is the indirect pathway. There are no viral genes that are involved, but what is going to happen is that the normal proto-oncogenes are going to be affected, and they are going to be converted into the oncogenes. So first of all, we are going to talk about the human papilloma virus, or HPV-VR. Basically, dear students, there are 50 types of the human papilloma virus that have been identified. Out of these 50 types, 1247 are basically concerned with the papilloma, or the benign squamous cell papilloma, or with the other name for them are the warts, and they are not related with the malignant transformations. But HPV types 16, 18 and 31 are related with the malignant transformations, along with their act is going to be enhanced by the mutated RAS within the host cells. So HPV, human papilloma virus, is going to cause the squamous cell carcinoma in the cervix and the anogenital region. And how this thing is going to happen, we are going to talk about the viral genes, which are E6 and E7, and these proteins are going to be encoded by the E6 E7 genes. And what they are going to do, we are going to just see this. This E6 is going to encode the proteins which is going to inhibit the guardians of the genome gene, and you know that the guardian of the genome gene is P53, which is going to act at both checkpoints. And once there is no checkpoint, guardian of the genome at the checkpoint, then there will be no apoptosis. Bax is not going to occur, so there will be the no apoptosis because your P53 is mutated. Once it is mutated, then all the cellular processes are going to occur in a mutated form. So then we are going to talk about E7. E7 is going to play its role in three things. One is P53. The second thing is that it is going to inhibit the P21, and you know that P21 is important at G1 to S phase. So G1 to S phase is your main first checkpoint, and you all know that at this checkpoint the most important thing is the retinoblastoma gene. So E7 is going to mutate that RB gene, and once this RB gene is hyperphosphorylated, I hope that you all remember that normally RB is hypophosphorylated. Once it becomes hyperphosphorylated, E2F factor will be released and there will be no growth arrest. So the cells are going to grow in a rapid fashion. So first of all, there is the initiation of the cancer cells by the E6 and the E7 proteins, and these are going to cause the anti-apoptosis. These are going to cause the de-differentiation. Here you can see that these are very much normal cells, but here you can see in the pre-neoplastic condition, which we are going to call as actinic keratosis, these cells are not going to remember their counterparts, so there will be the de-differentiation. Then there will be the inhibition of the DNA repair pathway, as you all know, and because of this and because of the continuous exposure of the HPV, there will be the development of the squamous cell carcinoma. Now we are going to talk about another virus, which is called as human T-cell leukemia virus 1. This virus is responsible for creating T-cell malignancies, and basically in its genome there are multiple genes like GAG, like POL, like ENF, but the most important one is the TAX gene. So just remember HTLV1 and the T from T, remember this TAX. The secret of this virus for its oncogenic characteristics lies in this TAX gene. What it is going to do, that this TAX gene is going to be essential for the viral replication, and it is going to stimulate the transcription of the viral messenger RNA while acting on the 5' long terminal, and because of the stimulation in the transcription of the viral messenger RNA, there will be the proliferation and the differentiation of the host T cells. Once there will be the proliferation and the differentiation of the T cell, then these become oncogenic in nature. So by this, the other gene that is going to play its role in the after this TAX gene is this FOS gene, and this FOS gene is going to encode this interleukin 2 and its receptors, and you all know that interleukin 2 is specifically involved in the inflammatory processes, and this virus is interleukin 2 is going to cause the growth of the myeloid growth factor in the granulocyte macrophage by activating the granulocyte macrophage cloning stimulating factor, or the other name is GMC stimulating factor. And then there will be another thing. The TAX protein, after the transcription of the messenger RNA, it is going to do another thing, that it is going to inactivate the cell cycle inhibitor family of P16 Inc4 and we have talked about this P16INK4 in our cell cycles lecture, that this is the INK4 family, and the basic function is to keep a check at the checkpoints on the cell's activity and the mutations. So once there will be the no activity of the P16INK4, there will be the enhances cyclin deactivation. So there will be the dysregulation of the cell cycle, and all the mutant cell can go into the cell cycle, and by crossing this the synthesis phase, and they are going to cross this first checkpoint very successfully because of the inhibition of the P16INK4 by the TAX gene. Then there is another thing. This tax is going to cause the activation of the NF-kappa B factor, transcription factor. And my dear students, you know that this NF-kappa B is basically responsible for the anti-apoptotic genes. So once there will be the enhancing the pro-survival genes or the anti-apoptotic genes, there will be no apoptosis. Once there will be no apoptosis, then these cells are going, which are being affected by the TAX genes and the HTLV1, there will be the genomic instability in these cells, and this tumor progression will go on. So if I just want to give you a concise view, that the most important in HTLV1 is the TAX gene, and TAX gene is going to act at basically three levels. One is by the transcription of the messenger RNA, second is by inhibiting the activity of the P16INK4, and the third is by the regulation of the transcription factor NF-kappa B. And along with the TAX gene, we have FOS genes, which is going to activate the interleukin-2, and interleukin-2 is going to act on the granulocyte macrophage colony stimulating factors, and it is going to activate the myeloid growth granulocytes. Now, my dear students, we are going to talk about Epstein-Barr virus, which is responsible for the Burkitt's lymphoma. As you all remember, I've already told you that this Burkitt's lymphoma is basically seen in African kids, and it is basically affecting the mandibular region, and there is the involvement of the all the lymph nodes, and there is on the histological picture we have basically a starry sky type of appearance in the Burkitt's lymphoma. Along with the Burkitt's lymphoma, Epstein-Barr virus is also responsible for the nasopharyngeal carcinoma. What this Epstein-Barr virus is going to do, basically the latent infection with the Epstein-Barr virus is going to cause the activation of the B cells, and there will be the growth of the B cells which are affected by the Epstein-Barr virus. Here you can see that these are the receptors for the Epstein-Barr virus, and once these are going to be affected, EBV specific, we have cytotoxic cells, there will be the no killing of these affected cells, and we are having the B cell growth control pattern. So what these EBV genes are going to do, basically the whole process is basically the involvement of the translocation of the c-MYC gene from the chromosome 8 to the chromosome 14 at the IGH point. Because of the MYC translocation from 8 to 14, there will be the mutant c-MYC formation, and you all know that MYC is responsible for the cell regulatory or the pathways. Once it will be lost because of these genetic changes, there will be the outgrowth of the neoplastic clones in the Burkitt's lymphoma, and then there will be the additional mutation. As you all know that cells requires multiple mutations to have a carcinoma. So there will be the multiple mutations, and because of this multiple mutation, this neoplastic growth neoplastic clone is going to develop into the Burkitt's lymphoma or in the nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Now we are going to talk about hepatitis B virus and C virus. Basically, both of these viruses are going to act in an indirect pathways. We are going to talk about the direct pathway also, but the main thing that these are going to play their role in the causation of the cancer like hepatocellular carcinoma in the liver is basically that they are not going to encode any viral oncoproteins, but what they are going to do is that they are going to play their role in the chronically inflamed hepatocyte, because you know that in hepatitis B and C there is a cirrhosis that is going on in through the liver, or the chronic inflammation is going on, and because of this chronic inflammation and the regeneration pathway which is going on in the cirrhotic, there are the genomic damages, and these genomic instabilities are going to carry it on. So these hepatitis B viruses and C virus are going to cause the activation of the NF-kappa B, and I have just told you that this NF-kappa B is basically related with the survival signals and the anti-apoptotic activities. So this NF-kappa B is going to block the apoptosis, and because of the blocking of the apoptosis in a chronically inflamed hepatocyte, what is going to happen that there is a rapid process of the regeneration, and the dividing cells are going to incur this genomic damage, and there will be the rapid development of the genotoxic stress, and there will be the accumulation of the mutations, and because of the genomic mutations there will be the progression towards the hepatocellular carcinoma. As far as hepatitis B and C viruses are concerned, I have told you that they are going to cause all the carcinogenic activity by the indirect pathway, by the activation of the NF-kappa B and by causation of the genomic instability. But there are other factors which are also involved. Like in hepatitis B virus, there is a gene which is called as HBX gene, which is going to directly or indirectly affect the transcription pathways. And once these transcription pathways are going to be affected, my dear students, there will be the several signal transcription pathways which are going to be affected, and this HBX gene in the hepatitis B virus is going to affect the signal transduction pathways. Then we have hepatitis C core protein. In the similar way, this is going to directly affect the process of the tuberogenesis by the induction of the growth promoting signal transduction pathways. Here you can see that these hepatocytes are being infected by the co-infection of the hepatitis B and the hepatitis D virus. Once hepatitis B virus and D virus are there, or whether there is a co-infection or there is a super-infection, there is an accelerated progression to the cirrhosis. And because of the acceleration progression to the cirrhosis, you all know that in the cirrhosis we are having the regeneration process, and because of the we need regeneration. So in order to have a regeneration, we need NF-kappa B activation for the inhibition of the chronically inflamed hepatocyte. So because of this molecular mechanism pathway, especially NF-kappa B, there will be the rapid growth of the oncogenic enhancement of the hepatitis B virus oncogenic properties, and this is going to cause the causation of the hepatocellular carcinoma. Along with that, HBX gene is also going to play its role in the development of the hepatocellular carcinoma in hepatitis B virus. So, my dear students, if I'm going to summarize all the important viruses that we have just discussed, you know that The first one is that we have discussed is the human papilloma virus, which is a DNA virus, and we know you have just read that it is going to cause the genomic instability by the directly affecting the E6, E7 proteins into the host cells, and these E6, E7 are going to affect the apoptosis. These are going to silence the activity of the P53 and the P16. We have just read about it, and once there is no apoptosis, there is no activity of the RB gene, there will be the release of the E2F vector, and so there will be the no growth arrest. Once there will be no growth arrest, there will be the activation of the cellular growth, and because of the inhibition of the apoptosis, there will be the further growth of the cellular pathways in the human papilloma virus affected host cells. Then we have talked about the human T cell leukemia virus, and I have told you that HDLV1 is a RNA virus, and basically multiple genes are there like GAG, FOS, and but the most important one is the TAX gene. And we have read that TAX gene is basically going to affect the apoptosis by the activation of the NF-kappa B, and there is also a role of the FOS gene, and that the FOS gene is going to stimulate the IL-2, and this is also going to stimulate the granulocyte colony stimulating factor, so there will be the myeloid growth. So because of this, there will be the inhibition of the apoptosis because of the activation of the NF-kappa B, and because of the IL-2 and the other factors that are going to be involved, cellular regulation pathways that are going to be involved, there will be the activation of the cellular growth in the HDLV1. Then we have talked about the Epstein-Barr virus. Basically, in Epstein-Barr virus, we have seen that because of the translocation of the MEC from the chromosome 8 to the chromosome 14, there is a development of the mutagenic colon, and once there will be the further developments or the further mutations are going to occur, this Epstein-Barr virus is going to convert these cells into the Burkitt's lymphoma or the nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Then we have talked about hepatitis B virus and the hepatitis C virus, and I have told you that both of these viruses are not going to affect directly basically, but indirectly activating the process of the cellular regeneration in the cirrhotic liver. So there will be the regeneration in the cirrhotic liver by activating the activity of the NF-kappa B, and once there is an activation of the NF-kappa B, there will be no apoptosis. And also, my dear students, HBx is also going to affect directly, and in HCV virus there will be the role of the core proteins, which is going to affect the many signal transduction pathways and the transcription pathways and chronically inflamed liver, and also it is going to cause the hepatocellular carcinoma. So I hope that all of these viruses and their mechanism is very much well known to you people. In university questions, you are basically asked, just write down three or four oncogenic viruses, their associated neoplasms, and write down any one of the mechanism. So I have tried my level best to give you an information about the important viruses that have been discussed in your book in your textbook, that is your Robbins. I want to give you an assignment. Today I'm not going to show you the slide, but I'm going to tell you verbally that your assignment is that you have to write down the names of the three viruses which are oncogenic viruses, and you have to tell me that which virus is going to cause which neoplasm. So your assignment for today is to tell me about the oncogenic viruses and their associated neoplasm, just three of them. So mark your attendance and give me the names. Now we have talked about the viruses. Now we are going to talk about a curved type of bacteria. In the stomach here you can see this virus bacteria, and this is called as H. pylori. Basically, H. pylori is going to contains the genes which are directly related with the process of the oncogenesis. As you all remember from your knowledge of the bacteriology, that H. pylori basically contains two types of genes. One is CAG-A and other is the VAG-A genes. Basically, VAG-A is related with the vacuoles formation within the cells of the surface lining cells of the stomach, and this CAG-A is going to penetrate directly into the gastric epithelial cells once the vacuoles will be formed by the VAG-A, and what it is going to cause is that it is going to cause the initiation of the signal cascade, and then because of the initiation of the signal cascade pathways there will be the unregulated growth factor stimulation, and because of this unregulated growth factor stimulation there will be the development of the oncogenesis. So, my dear students, you must be thinking that what are these pathways that are being involved by the H. pylori factors as well as zoonotic factors. Basically, H. pylori is going to cause the polymorphisms in the inflammatory cytokines. Like acute inflammatory cytokines are basically involved, like IL-1, interleukin-1, and the tumor necrosis factors. Once there is a polymorphisms in the promotions of the inflammatory cytokines, there is a development of the inflammatory environment. Pylori, we have gastric ulcers formation, we have peptic ulcers formation, and once it is there, H. pylori is basically going to cause the stimulation of the polyclonal B cell by the activation of the NF-kappa B pathway, and this NF-kappa B pathway activation of the B cell is basically dependent on the T cell stimulation of this B cell pathway because of the NF-kappa B. So my dear student, just remember this thing, that this H. pylori infection is going to cause the H. pylori reactive T cell activation, and these T cells are going to activate this polyclonal B cell proliferation by the NF-kappa B, and because of this polyclonal B cell proliferation we have the development of the monoclonal maltomas, and you know that this maltoma is a misnomer. Basically it's a malignant neoplasms of the malt cells within the stomach. So for today, we have done all the oncogenic viruses, we have done the bacteria, and the most important bacteria, oncogenic bacteria, is the H. pylori. And I have told you that the most important role in this is the by direct pathways, by the direct induction of the viral genes into the cytokines stimulation, by the signal transduction stimulation, or by some inflammatory processes like activation of the NF-kappa B, which is going to inhibit the apoptosis. So my dear students, thanks for being with me. Thank you very much.